Chapter 10. Logan's POV. Waking up to these beautiful blue eyes was something I would never get bored of or tire from. After our conversation about my mate's true being last night, I headed to my room and couldn't keep my hands off of her. I ended up sleeping with her pressed against my body and in between my arms. She seemed confused for a while before she rose from her place with a start and immediately cowered in the corner. God, I'm such an idiot. Of course she would freak out if she woke up in a stranger's arms. Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you, I said calmly without moving from my sitting position as to not scare her more. She looked into my eyes, trying to figure out if I was telling her the truth. I could see her beautiful tail moving behind her. Obviously, she was still unaware of its presence. However, it didn't take long before it touched her cheek, making her jump from her place with a screech. I should be grateful for that since she jumped right into my arms involuntarily. I felt sparks in all the places that were in contact with her body, and it looks like she felt them too because she withdrew from my hold yet again. She sat at the corner of the bed and brought her knees to her chest. What is that? She asked, confused, pointing at her moving tail. That's your tail, sweetheart, I replied calmly. My tail? How come? I'm human, she said with disbelief. No, baby girl, you're a gumhiho. And that is your first tail, I replied. I had to take this slowly with her, else she freaks out more than she already is. Are you going to kill me? Her question made my heart clench. How can she possibly think that I would ever hurt her, let alone kill her? I shook my head. No, I would never do that. I saw her slowly raise her good hand and hesitantly tried reaching my cheek. I made no attempts of moving so she won't back down. I was craving for her touch. As soon as her soft palm came in contact with my cheek, shocks erupted through both our bodies, and she quickly pulled her hand away, gasping. I gave her a small smile to reassure her that what I said about us being mates was true. But to my dismay, she didn't smile back. If anything, she looked more confused. Ever since we first met when I was 10, I've been dying to know her name, and ever since I found her 10 years later, I've been again dying to ask if she remembered me. Although I was sure the answer to the latter was a big no, seeing as how she is still a little afraid of me. I slowly reached for her good hand and held it. She stiffened at my touch and tried to pull away, but I gently pressed her hand and gave her a pleading look, telling her to not let go. Her eyes were glued on our hands, and she was thinking whether it was a good idea to actually keep her hand in mine. I decided to avert her attention by asking, "Baby girl." That made her raise her head slightly and look at me. I smiled at her and continued, "My name is Logan Thompson, the soon-to-be alpha of the Red Crescent Pack. What's your name?" She looked at me, debating whether it was safe to talk or not. Her face soon fell, and I could see her eyes started to glaze with tears. She then broke her gaze and buried her head in her knees. I heard her sniffle. My question obviously upset her, but I couldn't help but ask myself why. I only asked for her name. My thoughts were cut with her angelic voice. I don't remember, she stuttered between sobs. She can't remember. How can someone not remember their name? It just made my heart ache for her. But ever since I found her, I promised myself I would listen to her story and try my hardest not to cry. I know she's been through some trouble, and I'll just have to take her pain away and let her forget. But every time I see her frightened face, anger fills my body against those who dare hurt her, and sadness to her aching heart. I was brought back again from my trance when she continued, still burying her head in her knees. Ever since my parents sold me as a slave, and people stopped calling my name, I eventually forgot what it was. Sold you? What do you mean, sold? Sold as in given away for money. What? How come? Confusion was prominent on my face and was heard in every word as my brain was trying to process what my ears just heard. She slowly rose her head and looked at me, and when she nodded, confirming what I just heard, my blood started boiling inside of me, and I could feel my eyes changing color as my wolf tried to take control and go rip those people apart limb from limb. My anger seemed to have scared her because she buried her head again, and her body was shaking. I felt my face relax, and I brought the hand I was holding to my mouth and kissed her knuckles. She looked up at me, surprised. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I was just really mad about the way my beautiful mate was treated before." She creased her eyebrows and tilted her head slightly. I couldn't help but think that her confused expression looked really cute. "Baby girl, I can't help but ask you." I stared, wanting to know if she remembered me or not, even if it was a small part of what happened in the past. She looked at me for a while before silently nodding. "Don't I look familiar to you? Do you remember seeing me in the past?" Her confusion only grew at my question. She looked at me with creased brows and a scrunched nose, trying to see if I looked familiar. I had hopes she would, but they were soon crushed when she shook her head. I sighed. "I'm sorry," I heard her angelic voice say. I smiled at her and shook my head. "No, you don't have to apologize. You'll eventually remember, I'm sure of it, but, can I ask, what do you actually remember from your past?" "I only remember 3 things," she started softly. I nodded my head slightly, signaling for her to continue. "I only remember my birthday, my parents' faces, and the day I was sold." Her voice broke at the end, and my heart broke with it. "How come you remember your parents' faces but not your name? I mean, you never saw them after you were—" I couldn't get myself to say the word. "Sold," I heard her continue, with her eyes void of any emotion. I didn't say or do anything. "My parents, they were the ones who sold me for cash. They gave me up just because I'm human." Her voice broke, and she stuttered between sobs. She quickly wiped her tears away and took a deep breath before continuing. "I was only 10 years old. I was a slave doing whatever any pack member asked from me. I was abused verbally, mentally, and physically." She wiped away some more tears that fell from her eyes while my wolf and I tried so hard to control ours. "I can't cry in front of her. I can't. I have to be strong for her. I can't cry." "So, after all this, do you really think I would just forget their faces easily? I wanted to see how they were doing after they sold me. Was the money they took really that worth it? Was me being out of their lives really that beneficial to them?" And with that, she broke into hard sobs, clutching her chest. I slowly put my arms around her and pulled her into a gentle hug. I felt her body tense at first, but then it relaxed. She buried her face into my chest and held on to my clothes as she continued crying. I guess she held in for too long, and now was the time to finally get everything out.